Eli, we're done. Can you make sure you do the punk rock one?
Let's go!
Welcome back, family. Welcome back to the Primas podcast. This is Cindy. Hey, Prima Jessica.
Hey Prima, how's it going?
It's going.
I know. This week has been kicking us down, hasn't it? We were this close to canceling our entire podcast, guys. That's how bad life was pushing us down.
Hey, well, we don't know yet if we're not going to cancel it. Not just
I hope not.
I know, huh? This is our last one. No. It'll be fine. Stuff happens. So we have a super duper exciting topic today. I'm so excited because we talk a lot about childhood trauma. We talk a lot about psychology, human behavior. We're huge, I don't know, psychology enthusiasts, I guess I would call. Like we're still learning so much, and it's helped us personally to study psychology and to connect kind of like who we are as individuals and then our environment. And it's kind of like a math problem to me. Like, and this is just my personal theory. Remember, you guys, I'm a janitor. I could be totally wrong. So like, it's like a math problem to me. Like, this particular personal individual characteristic plus this particular environment may equal blah, blah, blah in terms of who we are as adults, right? Like that's the one connection I've been able to make for myself, for the people around me, like my family. So I'm excited because we actually have an expert in the topic. And before we get started, Jess, did you want to say anything else?
No, I also agree, Cindy. I'm super excited, as always, on most of our topics that we come up with ourselves. But throughout the entire podcast, we always throw in that term, childhood trauma. And now we're really going to like delve into this topic and deconstruct that idea of, well, what does it mean? And we're going to be very transparent and candid with our own experiences to hope it gives like a solid foundation of this understanding. So that's where we are in life, and we want to be as open as possible. So thank you, guest, and Prima, for you to introduce her when you are.
So yes, our guest, I'm very excited. Thank you so much for your time. This is a special honor. Georgina, who is a licensed marriage and family therapist. And so she specializes in health therapy, inner child healing, cultural and trauma informed care. And so all of the things that we talk about, and when we do share our personal stories, now that we have someone that, is actually listening to these stories, and is just in the field and she's practicing, we wanted to bring you guys topics a little bit about destigmatizing counseling and therapy in not just the Latino, Latinx, not in just our communities, but in general, because I think it's across the board. It's something, that's looked upon as like something negative. So before I keep talking, Georgina, welcome so much to the Primas podcast. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you both for having me. I'm super excited, especially speaking to people who are interested in the topic. As time goes on, I find more people who are so interested. So then it makes the work easier and it makes it sort of flow. It flows a lot better.
It's I just feel like it's such an amazing topic because I'm so much in the middle of my healing, maybe even not there yet, but I'm aware. Like, I guess I'm in that place where I'm aware of some of my traumas and like how I react as an adult. I'm also a mom. And I'm still trying to figure myself out. So it's just, I'm always looking for this type of information. It really, really helps. So your page, is it okay if I share your Instagram page?
Yeah, go ahead.
So her page, you guys have to follow her. It's super awesome. You do a lot of different things that we'll get into, but it's GGL Therapy. And you can also follow her at ggltherapy.com to learn more. So we'll have that in the description box. But yeah, I wanted to start with that. And I also wanted to start with destigmatizing therapy. I think it's, even for myself, when my cousin, she was very open, Jessica has been very open about her therapy. And I'm like, man, that's so awesome I feel like she might be the first one in our family. I think Robert has done therapy when he was like coming out of the
In
Marines.
his MSW. Yeah. So one of our cousins, Cindy's brother,
Oh.
graduated with an MSW. And I think when I told him, I expressed I was going, he said that within that program, I think you kind of have to start talking to someone. And I think that's where he got. Mhm.
Yeah, it's definitely the best approach is go through the therapy, uncover your own bias, uncover your own trauma history, because when you are with a client, it will come up. Like something will happen in session that will remind you exactly of your family, or it will remind you of pain that you thought was no longer there. So they definitely recommended MSW programs, recommended MFT programs, recommended. Some of them require it, some of them don't, but at least it is a recommended piece because, yeah, you'll get dragged in the field if you haven't done your work. And either way, you'll get dragged just because you're young and you're learning. And it's so many pieces of mental health trigger therapists also. So we have to be aware also.
Yeah, and like Cindy said, I just started in July of last year, so it hasn't even been an entire year. And the reason why I decided was because I had a crazy sleepwalking episode. And to me, that's a huge red flag in my behavior, like my unconscious behavior in a sense, because I don't have any memory of what I did while that happened. And so I had to like self-reflect a lot. And I had just graduated college, an undergrad in psychology. And I kept saying, oh, when I'm done with school, I'll feel better. I'll feel better. And clearly that wasn't the case because it had already been 2 months. And my level of stress, physiological, mental was still on my shoulders. So I said, how am I going to help someone or help people, which is my passion, if I'm not even questioning my own behavior or questioning my thought process? So that was another reason why I started, because I'm also interested in a grad program. So I'm like, you know what, I might as well jump the gun now because I need a lot of work. I just don't think in 2 years I'll be like as fixed, or however you want to use it. But I just decided to start now and I love it. It's been very therapeutic for me. I love talking and hearing the sound in my own voice, which is why we have a podcast. But it's different when you have like such an unbiased person who's listening to you. And that's what I really enjoy from it.
Yeah, and it's definitely giving yourself that space and that opportunity, right? Especially within our community. In a lot of ways, we may get messaging, that's not a big deal, or like get past it, or it's okay. So you generally like taking space and saying, this hour is for me, this hour is for my therapist to support me, for somebody just to hold me, is huge. It's huge, huge, huge. And it really makes a stance on, I'm going to make this commitment and I'm going to make this time for myself in order to reflect, in order to learn something new, whatever it is that you're doing in your specific type of therapy, right? But it can be taking up space again when we haven't had that opportunity in our past.
Georgina, why do you think it's so difficult for us to, and I'm not talking so much about accessibility, because some of us won't even look into some of the like resources that could help us. What do you think it is for us that we, it's like all of us need it, all of us need help, all of us have so much trauma to heal from, that it's like, why, you know what I mean? Like, why is it so hard for us to make that step to talking to someone?
Yeah. You know, part of it may be the stigma, maybe the sort of like, what would they say? Or am I crazy? Is something really wrong with me? In research, though, that doesn't necessarily tend to be the biggest thing. The biggest thing tends to be engagement and like, will somebody understand me? Will that young therapist, will that white therapist, will that whatever type of approach, will they understand me? And something that I've seen, especially in my children, moms, dads bring their children because there are behaviors, there are real concerns that are happening, and they will sign their children up for therapy. Adults, on the other hand, like when I want to give a referral to a mom for her to go to therapy, it's sort of like, my time has passed. This is my pain and this is my burden to carry. and I will continue to carry it. So what I have seen is a direct kind of like, it's mine. This is my pain. This is my history. I don't know how to put it down. I don't know how to live without it.
Interesting.
So it sounds like commitment to the history, but it also is like, I have survived this way, and I work and I provide and I do the things I have to do. So is there really anything wrong? Is there really anything that I could possibly need from Georgina or from a different type of therapist? So once I know for some people that that's their approach or their way, it's sort of, I start to ask, are you tired? Because it must be exhausting. I know you can do it. I know you're strong. I know you're capable, but are you tired? And as they start to explore, I am tired, this is really stressful, this is overwhelming, then they start to lighten the load, and I start to introduce, could there be a different way? I know you can do it, you can live for the rest of your life that way, and a lot of our parents do actually, but could there be a lighter way, a more restful way, a more calm sort of, by healing some of this history? But for a lot of people, I really see this identification with their trauma, that is, it's mine. And I see them carry it, and I'm like, I don't want to take it from you.
That's
yeah.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Mm-hmm. I just want to like look, and if they can let me look, if adults, children can let me look, then we can explore together what it means and what it can mean from that point forward. Oh, the protective qualities that I have from it, I can use, I can access if I need. And if I don't need to carry it. I don't need to like have it weigh me down or to that extent.
Yeah, I was gonna say it reminds me of, and I saw it on your page. You were
Mhm.
talking about it, guilt. Like, even though you didn't say that word, it kind of connects back to another video that you have in your Instagram page where
Mhm.
our guilt isn't as obvious, I guess. It's because that for me is like, why are you settling with this suffering?
Mhm.
It's like you have to carry this burden, and you're inflicting pain on yourself when it's like, you can, like you said, you can feel so much better. You don't have to live this way.
Mhm.
And I wonder if you can talk a little bit about that, like guilt, like where
Yeah.
is that, coming from?
My primary experience has been working with the Latinx community, and it's such a complex topic, but the easiest way that I can describe it is, my mom suffered, her mom suffered. We come from a line of suffering. Who am I to be any different? Who am I to heal? Who am I to live an easier life? So when we bring about guilt, and we bring about, not that we're always the ones giving it to ourselves, but when we start to see, I can heal, but I can't heal my mom or my grandmother, that becomes a very complex piece of our healing. Is, you want to bring the whole community, but we can't. And by default, by healing ourselves, we also help heal them, because it's the lineage, it's the history. And we don't need to heal all parts of ourselves.
That
And
gave
what I
me
mean by
chills.
the lineage and the family history, yeah, a lot of the times I think about the beauty of our community. I think about the trauma of our community, and like, and one of the biggest things, especially for me in the work that I've done, even for myself, not even for my clients, is both of them exist in me. This resilience and power, and this oppression that has happened to our communities. And I wish, oh my goodness, how I wish my parents would go to therapy. And they won't. And I'll joke and I'll be like, if I win this bet, I'll pay for your first therapy session, Dad. Like bet. And I'll pay the full fee, And he'll just be like, no, like, it's not even funny. I would never take that. I'm like, okay, but that's the only voucher you get. Like, I'm not going to give you $150. Yeah, you'll credit it towards your therapy. But he knows, and I talk to him about it. Like, you don't need to suffer anymore, Dad.
Yeah.
I think
I said
he still believes that.
Yeah, same. I remember when I was younger, I would always ask my parents, can we do families? And I learned the hard way. You cannot, and I'm still learning this. And that was 10 years ago when I tried to like make my parents go to therapy with me. I'm learning that right now in my practice in therapy is I cannot control anybody's actions. And so that's why it gave me chills when you said that, because that's 100% true of what I'm barely self-reflecting on or coming to terms with that understanding. As much as I want to help them and heal them, I can't. That's their choice and this is my choice. And because I do have a daughter, I want to break that cycle. I don't want her, like me and Cindy always joke around and say, like, our daughters are going to have a lot less trauma than us. Don't get me wrong, they're going to have some trauma, right? Who knows what that is? But we don't think we're going to provide them a lot of tools that emotionally that I don't think we had growing up, and that confidence. So, and there's nothing wrong. I mean, I talk to both of my parents. I love them and I'm forever grateful for their parenting styles. But you know what I mean? It's like when we grow up, like I choose not to blame them. I choose to just understand their pain and their subjection in life. And then I need to understand mine and move forward so I can heal. But it's all just a huge landscape of understanding is my best interpretation of it.
Yeah, and that with trauma history, like you mentioned, like who knows, it may be a different type of trauma history. The biggest piece is, as we started saying, there can be a different way. Sometimes a different way means repair. It means I messed up. It means I'm willing to say, I'm sorry. I'm willing to say when mom gets upset, I'm not a mom myself, but when mom gets upset, she screams or I scream and I lose my cool or something like that. And not for a child to have somebody acknowledge, right? Mom gets frustrated. Mom gets upset. She has big feelings. I got hurt or my feelings got hurt. And now we get to repair and remedy. And I'm sort of like, oh, and sort of like those are the patches that I think don't happen in our community. Yes, trauma happens, the repair doesn't happen. The opportunity to sort of see this big thing happened and nobody talked about it. And we just keep on going. And then the story repeats. That's where really we see the generational kind of pieces come in versus like offering some repair, offering some slowing down, not having it be so fast into more trauma, more trauma, more trauma.
I have a question about, like, for example, with me and my mom. My mom raised me very differently. I'm the only girl, and then I have 4 brothers. And so very, traditional, very like, we're the first generation. I don't know the terminology, but like we were the first born here in the United States, but then, my past is all Mexican. So I was very resentful, and it came out later in life when I had my daughter because I had to help my mom so much as a very, very young, right? Like that's super cultural. And not my brothers. My brothers had responsibility because my mom was really hardcore, but not nowhere near to what I was doing. I mean, I was helping her raise my 2 younger brothers. I was taking care of the household, at a really young age. And so when I had my daughter, I expected her to do everything that I did. When she was working, I'm like, you're going to help, right? And it wasn't that way. And so like it triggered me, I guess is the best word. And I'm like, I felt like I'm in a place where I feel like she owes me that. And I know that she doesn't. Nobody owes anybody anything. And also that she's acknowledged that, yeah, she hit us and she treated me differently, but she's never really fully apologized. And I'm in the place where it's like, I can't wait. If I wait, right, then I'm being dependent on her for my healing, and I shouldn't be. And so I kind of want to see what you think about that, like, because I feel like that's common for other girls, to grow up in a family like that, and and it just came up when I became a mom. So it's kind of weird.
And I, like I mentioned earlier, I'm not a mom, but I am a firstborn female in a family of. I have another sister, but I'm the firstborn female of 5. So I have an older brother, and we sort of alternated boy, girl, boy, girl, boy. So the 5 of us. But I was a little mom and I was parentified, and I was very in line with, if I do good, you will be pleased, right, mom? If I do good, I'm pleasing my mom. It was a constant like back and forth. The piece that you're referring to is you wanted repair. You wanted, okay, I sacrificed a lot. I took care of my siblings, you know, I understand that that was part of my upbringing in my life. And where is my sort of like, at least acknowledgement, at least like, even if it's not repayment, at least acknowledgement. And when that did not happen, the trigger of the child, not even, I don't even think the adult you, the child you became sort of like, but mom, but I need you now. But mom, why can't you see that I need you now? I'm vulnerable. I just had a child. This is the time when I need my mom. When most women, you know, really, they don't know as new moms actually, like, and we access family culture, right? Like, how would I do it? And when that didn't happen, there's a back and forth that's happening. My child self is hurt, and my adult self is angry, is frustrated. And by honoring both, you can reparent your young self by saying, oh, I just needed my mom. As I became a mom, I just needed my mom, and I needed her to be here for me. And she couldn't see me, or she couldn't hear me. I kept calling her, calling her. And we think about it, right? Babies cry and we go to them. And we use our words and we try to ask and they don't come to us. So a lot of the times that's the piece where it's sort of like, how do I remedy this? How do I manage this big feeling? And a lot of it will be in honoring and in reparenting ourselves and saying, I still am deserving of a mom, of parenting. Even when you can't give it to me, mom, I still deserve nurturance.
Yeah, that's deep.
Mm-hmm.
I totally resonate with that.
You're good, Georgina. I'm already over here.
I know I didn't want to keep going. I don't want to not
No,
overshare, but go ahead.
Oh no, I'm just saying, like, that was really good. I had never looked at it that way, where sometimes I do talk to myself in the mirror when I need courage,
Mm-hmm.
but you just kind of like pinned it, you know, where it's like I need to acknowledge that it's okay for me in
Mm-hmm.
such a vulnerable time. Like, my daughter's getting older. I'm
Mm-hmm.
still going through life, but you know, it's better now. She's getting older. She's not a baby, but
Mm-hmm.
it was heartbreaking, you know, to be like, you're the only person out here for me. Like, we need to help each other out.
Mm-hmm.
And because of our tension, you know, we weren't allowed to. And now I'm getting to the place where I'm doing more forgiving, but also acknowledge, like you just said, I need to acknowledge more of myself and saying it's okay. Like, talk to your inner child. Like, that was very beautiful. That touched me. So,
Yeah, and by doing so,
thank you.
we really it's a lot of honoring that takes place, and a lot of grief. Like, I wish you would just honor me, mom. You're there, I'm here, just honor me. So then the grief that I'm referring to is like the parent that we didn't have, the parent that we expected would be there for us in pregnancy or in labor or in our child's early childhood, you know. We didn't get that parent or grandparent for our child. So then there is grief, and I mean deep rooted. They are here with us, but it feels like we are losing parts of them. It feels that deep and that real for us. And I'm sure I'll experience it too, going into parenthood, hopefully in the next couple of years. But I'm sure I'll experience swinging of sort of like, I need you. Do you hear me, mom? Will you come for me? Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
That's beautiful. Honoring your inner child, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Jess, were you going to say something earlier?
No.
I think you were feeling identified with it also. Jessica.
Yeah, no, it just because I feel for my cousin. I didn't have that experience with my mom, but I saw my cousin get emotional and it made me emotional because I can't see her cry without crying. I'm like, Cindy, can you stop? So no, but I completely agree. This is what we're talking about when we're talking about the
We do
childhood trauma.
everything together.
Her hand, we do everything together. Even
True.
cry.
Yeah.
That's
But
awesome. Because it's such a good relationship where you
Very
can
good.
connect.
I kind of wanted to touch the waters on like that childhood trauma and understanding. So like this realization I've came to is like when we were debriefing Georgina about like my partners and where I'm at in my life with that. And growing up, I've always had both my parents. Were they did they demonstrate the most healthiest relationship? No. And a lot of my behaviors in my romantic partners, I'm barely starting to pinpoint or understand why I've dated or choose to be with certain partners, because I'll say this a million times. My dad's an amazing dad. He's like the best dad ever, but he's not the best husband. And in those characteristics, I subconsciously sought out in my partners. And I never understood that. So it's going back into that childhood trauma and understanding, because my dad would treat my mom a certain way. And when I was in my romantic partners, I allowed that behavior to happen within my romantic partners because I thought that was the normal, right? Quote unquote, I normalized it because I didn't know any different. And so I kind of wanted to touch on that because that's going to also transition into the other main topic we wanted to discuss.
Sure.
But isn't that interesting how like subconsciously all my partners have fallen to be very similar to how my dad has always treated my mom.
Mm-hmm.
And I love my parents, but I'm just coming to terms with that right now.
Yeah. And part of what you're referring to is duality. So meaning both can happen at the same time. I may have chosen these partners and I may want something different. Both can be true at the same time. I can appreciate my dad's positive characteristics and some of the downfalls. Both can be true at the same time. Now, by addressing some of those, and it sort of goes back to there can be trauma and there can be resilience, even in difficult partnerships. Now, once you have awareness, you can't really go back, right? Like you were sharing, like you're having more awareness and you're being pushed into reflecting more on those pieces. Awareness is not something that we can take away once we have it, but it's also not the end all be all. Sort of like now I'm aware and I need to suffer because I'm aware or anything like that. It's more so, and I think you used a correct word, it's interesting. It's interesting. That's kind of interesting that they're similar, right? And I'm not sure if I shared this just a bit with you, like my dad and my partner, pretty similar upbringings, very similar actually upbringings, pretty similar attitudes too, just like in approach, in drive, in motivation, in workaholism, so all of those things can be true, and we can manage to explore when they trigger us, what happens in regards to what isn't healthy, right? And sometimes they need to know our upbringing and understand our story in order for them to know, oh, this is very hurtful to you. This is harming our relationship. But a lot of that includes duality, and it includes exploration of what are my values and can I be okay with and what can I not be okay with. I can't be okay with hitting, or I can't be okay with cheating, or there are certain limits that come into place, and that this partner is not dad. Like even if they have characteristics of dad, that they aren't. It's a different person with different backgrounds and different histories, and definitely like holding that to be true. They can have characteristics, they can resemble in some way, and we can still have a healthy, functioning, or at least moving towards that relationship.
Yeah. And I just started a new job, and within this new job, there's a bunch of trainings because I'm a case manager for the homeless population.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're always doing trainings, and we just did a training on domestic violence. And even that, I got very emotional because when they were pointing out 4 different identifiers of what the umbrella of domestic violence was, I was like, whoa, a lot of my old past relationships felt into this, because we always assumed within our culture, and me and Cindy have discussed it, where as long as they're not hitting us, that's okay. But I analyzed my parents' relationship, and there's a lot of DV red flags. And then, so when I was in those relationships, I allowed it. And now that I'm self-reflecting is because that's what I thought was normal. And I don't want that to be my normal with my boyfriend right now. So I'm trying to identify those issues within myself to my childhood, what my environment was, which wasn't the best when my parents were arguing. But isn't that, again, interesting and just a little mind-blowing to me how we're adults now, and when people argue, oh, you're a kid, like you you didn't know anything, but we carry that into our adult life. And I'm 31 years old, and I'm barely like identifying that. So
Yeah,
you guys' thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's possible that you are identifying it now here in your brain. Like you're making the link in your brain, prefrontal cortex, like, oh, that has a link. There is a link there. The difference though, in now that you see back at other relationships, is that your body was probably identifying that, not your brain, not logical, not, those things. But when you were in a cycle of dysregulation or emotional, overwhelm, your body was, here it comes, they're going to leave, or I need to hold on, or they're hurting me and yet I'm still here, or something to that extent. So the body probably knew before, like the brain told you, oh, there's a link here. And with that, the piece of it, I'm trying to gain back my train of thought. But definitely your body was probably reacting before your brain could catch up to those things. With domestic violence, there are people who continue, even if there's financial kind of like abuse or control in different ways and no physical abuse. That definitely is something that we see very common in our communities. And in general, we can see why then women stay. They can't leave because financially they don't have the means to leave. And historically, they've been stuck in sort of like poverty or systemic issues that impact women, and men don't hit, but then they control the finances, or they don't allow, any sort of like anything outside of that. So having the awareness here is honoring the awareness in your body that you may have known and have felt historically. About what is unsafe or what is safe or what feels wrong or what feels healthy for you.
Georgina, can you touch, you were kind of alluding a little bit to the fact that especially in our culture, and again, I don't want to be exclusive because I know this happens across the board, but we're, it's kind of in our nature to say, like, we're Mexican, it's in our background, where it's not just about, and this happens a lot where people get physically abused, but a large portion of that is like, well, I'm not getting hit, so therefore it's not as bad as we think because our aunts, our grandmas, the older generations got hit. It's kind of like what you were saying earlier, like no one's hitting you, but then you're dealing with verbal abuse that really messes with your psychology. I mean, with your psyche, messes with your head. It like you can't sleep at night. um that control that people might not even know of, like the financial stuff you were talking about.
Mhm.
Someone can't just leave that situation. They really, they don't have, they lack the resources. So I was wondering if you can talk a little more to other signs that a lot of
Mhm.
people don't consider domestic violence, but there's so much, they're very damaging to not just ourselves, but our kids and our other family members. If you could speak a little on that.
We normally don't know. The children will tell us though. So if a child is in therapy or if a child is in school, we won't know. We won't know about the adults, but the teacher will know, the therapist will know, the doctor will know. Now, it's because children cannot have that filter. Children cannot, separate like mom and dad were just having a conversation. Children will, mom and dad are never coming back. Mom and dad hit mom or dad does certain things. I mean, I've had experiences of children, no hitting, right? Dad drinks cans, beer, cans, and then cuts up mom's things. No hitting, no hitting. I mean, as a therapist of children in my history, it's red flags, red flags, red flags. So, and it's the most curious thing. Sometimes children go into therapy and the symptoms are not really there. And that's because mom is asking for help through the child. So it is so amazing. We will see very odd, and a very skilled therapist will know, oh, something else is going on. But if the parent is very quiet, the mom, let's say in this type of situation, then it'll come out in their children. And then at some point there will be some sort of involvement. And then that's where we tread very carefully because we don't want to increase risk for the mom in the home. So we just explore. No reporting, no DCFS, Department of Children and Family Services, nothing like that, because nobody has disclosed violence. But you're attuned and you're aware, oh, something else is going on. And it's not up to me to make this woman see it. Like, here, look at the facts, this is domestic violence. It's a very slow unraveling of, oh, what is that like for you? And the victim will start to share slowly as they start to trust that they won't be in more danger, because someone who is not abusive may become abusive if they're talking, if they're sharing information or things like that. So it's I definitely see it in the children, and I definitely see it in like self-esteem or things like that. The partner may not be around, but the adult doesn't feel like they can express like freely, things shown by like dismissing, oh no, it doesn't matter, or nothing, those types of things. Yeah.
And can you speak a little to when we do know, when it's like it's in our face, it's happening all the time, and we still don't go forward with either pressing charges, getting a restraining order, or whatever the next steps are, we also feel so guilty to put that person in that position, but then we're getting all the abuse. You know what I mean? Like, that's such a weird place, and I wonder, what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, it definitely. Like I had mentioned, managing the violence, so restricting escalation of symptoms or violence is definitely number one, because it's about safety. So if you perceive that by saying something that this person's going to get more aggressive, or by involving the police they're going to get more aggressive or something to that extent, you may not report, you may not say anything. But you may, when they are alone, say, if you ever need anything, right? You may not say if he ever hits you, or if this specific thing ever happens. If you ever need anything, you call me at any time. I'll be here. I'll pick up the phone, things like that. As therapists, though, we are looking for reducing like the aggressive escalation. We don't want to put the person at more risk, and that's what can happen, or they have to go back home with that person. So you just start to plant sort of like, oh, did you know we have groups here? The person may just be like, oh, what are they about? Oh, just some women get together, you know, let me know if you're ever interested in learning more. And then you just leave it, leave it, leave it, leave it. Now, if it's imminent, right, it's happening very, very pressing in your face, we cannot protect as therapists adults, but we can protect children. Children are protected class, and there can be, you know, like specific involvement like police or DCFS, because they are a protected class. But two adults fighting or hitting or anything like that, they are autonomous and they can remain in the relationship. It's a really frustrating and a really tough thing to see, because it's a stuck place. It's sort of like, this is my life, this is where, what else can I do? Yeah.
And can you talk a little bit to how damaging that is and what it can cause to a child and how you see that behavior later on in life, you know, manifest itself?
Mm-hmm. In childhood, children, especially depending on the age, may not show in words. They may show in repetitive play. So, you know, two characters constantly fighting, one character dying, the ambulance coming, like something to that extent that the children will replay, sort of like, and you both have children, so sort of like they'll watch the same thing over and over again. It's like a loop of the same song or the same show. That's just what they like. But if it's trauma, that loop is because they haven't resolved it. So they keep on replaying, or you hear them in a different room and they're screaming, and it's just like, but they're playing because they're playing out what their experience has been. When it happens early in childhood, there may be misperception, like my mommy died that day. The mom's sitting next to the child. You know, yeah, my mommy died. What do you mean? Because their perception is, especially depending on their stage that they may be at, maybe blood means death, or mom unable to breathe may mean death. You know, that's the perception of a child. So at some point, parent or therapist may have to clarify, oh, you saw something really scary and you thought mom was gone or mom wasn't coming back. So definitely clarifying stories, clarifying for children the perception, like what did they think happened. I've had kids water bend, like from like Avatar, and I'm like, water bend, that's not true. But I go with it. Their perception is they could protect, like move the water, you know, like move the water and protect mom or fight dad with the water. I mean, it's amazing. So we definitely see it in repetition and play and stories in children. And then eventually, as children get older and into adulthood, they may be fearful or stuck, and they may not be sure why. They may think women are this or women are this other thing or whatever it is, right? Because of that early childhood experience. So we would call those core beliefs, like that experience impacted a belief about you, such as I'm weak or I'm not worthy or I don't deserve to exist. And you carry that belief with you into adulthood. And we see what happened to an adult who may have that belief. Difficult relationships, difficulties completing tasks, overcommitting to work or to school because they have to prove a point, right? They can be varied in the way that it shows in adulthood. Yeah.
I have one more question, sorry,
Mm-hmm.
before we move into like resources. But
Mm-hmm.
you know those people that it happens a lot where you know, if my dad hit my mom, then I later go and get also an abusive husband, or vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
Like I saw my dad hit my mom, but then now I'm the abuser
Mm-hmm.
in my relationship. And I want to know what you think about that, because the both women and men see the consequences of their families, but then they still repeat them. So I'm wondering, like, what's the correlation, or what? I
Mhm.
don't know if you can speak on anything to that.
Yeah. The there is a correlation. I guess it's so varied. I may become a victim. I may become an aggressor. I may heal. There is that option. I may heal that early hurt. I may be triggered by it in later life, but I may be healed. Um, there's like definitely more options, but like let's just say those. Um, by acknowledging that there are possibilities here and that it keeps on replaying, or there's some hurt there that hasn't been resolved, um, the relationships continue and the patterns continue. And the only way to sort of stop them, I wouldn't even necessarily say it's in therapy all the time, is through um, change. And change meaning like your experiences teaching you, I cannot continue this way, or a big like someone's going to die, like changing you into I cannot continue this way. So change can happen in different ways, and a lot of it, whether you know it or not, is reflecting on early hurts that cannot continue anymore, or that if it continues, then I will continue to suffer in the same place, in the same difficulty, hurting. And men that I have treated, um, they have hurt their children, and then they tell me how they saw their dad hurt their mom, and they have a lot of repair to do with themselves, not even with their mom or dad, with themselves for some of the behaviors that they aligned with, or some of the things that they did.
Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to also mention that some of the resources that I've used in the past, so that we can get into, like, if someone finds themselves in this situation or they know someone in this situation, some of the resources that I've used in my past relationships, or if I was in a situation, and it was weird because I was so embarrassed to even call, but the domestic violence crisis hotlines,
Mm-hmm.
they have 24-hour people, staff, or volunteers, and I'm really looking into volunteering now, because you get to choose your hours, and it's literally just talking to someone, and
Mm-hmm.
um, it's a crisis hotline, so it's not just talking to someone, right? It's like a situation. But my mom told me, she's like, why don't you call, like when you're feeling a certain type of way? And I'm like, I don't need that. I didn't get hit. Or, I was so much in denial. Like, I'm not a victim. I hated that word. Um, but it was helpful. I don't know what told me, like, just do it. You don't even know. And I think my mom telling me, like, what can we, I don't know what to tell you, but if you talk to someone that either has been in that situation before, or they can connect you to like a support group, um, don't be afraid to ask for help. Like I said, I was embarrassed. I got on the phone and it felt so good. And it felt so nice for someone to hear me and to say, you're going to be okay. And, like all of these other things, there's way more resources, but I just kind of, we forget about those. I feel like those are cards that are always handed out, like the domestic
Oh yeah.
violence crisis hotlines. And
Mm-hmm.
never, because I used to be a teacher and they used to tell us stuff, or I was in different roles where I was the person handing out that resource.
Mm-hmm.
So now having to step back and having to use it myself, it was like my ego, I guess, more
Yes.
than anything, because I don't know how else to explain that, but don't be ashamed to get help. Don't feel guilty. No one deserves to suffer. No one deserves to be treated badly for no reason. Like that, I don't ever think there's a reason to treat someone badly, or to mess with their head and make them think that they're unsafe. And that's like, that really hurt my ego. So, I kind of wanted to start us off there. Like, don't forget about the domestic violence crisis hotlines. They're free. They're 24/7.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, if you have any other resources, Georgina, that not necessarily, they don't have
Yeah.
to be related to, but if they are.
I know for that may be for talk, and for like, in the moment I need to talk this out and I need support. I know there's an agency in the San Fernando Valley called Strength United, that once you're ready to take action, they will walk you through restraining orders. They will hold your hand, go to court with you for restraining orders. And that place is called Strength United. And I used to work for them, and they're in a private location, like there's no signs outside to advertise any of the things that they do. It's just for survivors. And then definitely Latinx therapy, it's a podcast. It just helps you relate and hear other people's experiences on there, and primarily from therapists, but they share a lot about different topics. So those would be the two that I would recommend.
Awesome. And we'll include that information on the link and on our Instagram page.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I wanted to ask is because sometimes, with therapy, like if someone is ready and they want to seek out to talk to somebody, are there any resources that are maybe free or like maybe to get your foot in the door that that you have any information on?
Free, definitely start with podcasts. It's so interesting because any topic that I want to learn, I'm really into attachment and inner child. So anything that you are wanting to learn, or if anything that about our conversation stood out, those would be the main things. But so I'm saying be resourceful, use the things that are out there, YouTube and definitely podcasts, just by using keywords can definitely get you there. But as far as free resources, for therapy, the lowest like cost is like Medi-Cal. You will get free services through Medi-Cal. So if you happen to have Medi-Cal, that's the best approach. And it can be children as little as 0, like they could be like newborns and they went through a traumatic birth and they can get services. The parents or the caregiver would have to seek those services, but they can get services. And as an adult also, there's different types of Medi-Cal. And the way that you would go about that would be to look up community mental health in your area. So San Fernando or wherever you're located, Los Angeles, wherever it is. And then the agencies will come out. Next tier, and they are kind of like tiers, would be like graduate centers. So like Phillips Graduate Institute is one of them. CSUN, California State University Northridge has one. It's like $20 a session, $30 a session, something like that. So that would be the next tier of like services. And then of course, trying to use your insurance if it is in Medi-Cal by calling or exploring any like specific type of therapist, like domestic violence therapist in my area. The beautiful thing now with telehealth, you can see anybody in California. It doesn't matter where they're at because it's through telehealth. So it really opens like and adds variety to the
Colorado. So the equivalent to Medi-Cal over here is Medicaid.
Okay.
So if you're under Medicaid, I'm pretty sure it's similar services. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that real quick.
Yeah, it would be either community mental health or community agencies that accept Medicaid or Medi-Cal here in California.
Okay, so community mental health. And like we said, we'll add all of this to the description box.
And always, like, I'm always encouraging everyone. And my sister always says, you need to stop telling people to go to therapy. But I'm like, I don't know how else, because I'm like, I hear the pain. I just hear the inner child crying. And I'm like, I don't know how to help you. Like, I don't know. I just see it. And I just think like, it'll be very helpful. But my sister always like makes fun of me. But I'm a huge advocate for mental health and just talking it out with someone. Like, let's normalize going to therapy within our culture. It's just talking. And this to me was very similar to what a therapy session is. Just going back and forth, like an open dialogue, like a safe space for no judgment. And I say that, and I have a big family. I'm really close, but sometimes I want to say things where I don't really want to tell my family, because then I'm going to say like, they're going to get an impression of someone that I don't want them to, so it's eliminating that bias from my family who's going to be protective of me. So I love therapy, and I'm sorry if I keep encouraging it, but I don't know any other way to like subtly.
I'm glad that you're an advocate. Yes, we definitely need more of that. And to be quite honest, I joke, like I said, about like, I'll pay for your first session type of thing. But to be quite honest, in general, it's just sort of like even planting seeds about the topics, sort of like, oh, like the little one's playing a lot. And like, what do you mean she's playing? Well, yeah, that's what kids do. Oh, yeah. But she's talking a lot about what she's playing about. And like that, even that to a parent, it's just like, yeah, she's narrating. She's telling me a story with her play. Even as simple as that for a parent to acknowledge, like, my child is exploring and my child is story, like giving me stories. I get to sit with my child and be with them. That's so big and so huge. And it's mental health. And it's, like resiliency and positive experiences in childhood, even just reflection, right, for those children. So whether it be for our inner child or our actual children, like it's definitely possible to be able to continue advocating for that.
Yeah, I do want to say shout out to my prima for being so open about therapy. When she first told me, I was like, "Oh, you think you're all bad?" I was a little jealous because not jealous, but I've been always say like, "I need therapy too," and you talk about it. But she actually did the steps, and the fact that she is so open, I think, is very powerful because as much as someone might think it's annoying in our culture, I think we don't hear it enough where someone's like, you should do therapy. I am, because it's helping me. I don't know how else to fix. I'm barely trying to figure out this, me. And it's just, I think it's a huge resource that we need to tap into and talk about more. When I get into therapy, I'll also be talking about it a lot.
Yeah.
Just because you guys are experts, and even in this conversation, like you brought up some stuff for me that I'm like, man, I wish I could talk to you, even longer. So
yeah.
thank you so much for sharing your time. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, and with that, I will share also. There are periods of my life where I'm not in therapy, and this is one of the periods when I'm back in therapy. So my therapist is from DF. She says my name, Georgina. She doesn't say Georgina, and she says it the way my mom would say it. And she's not my mom. I understand that fully, but I chose somebody who's a little bit older, who could relate to me in a different way, and I wanted someone who was Latina. So in that for myself, even some of my siblings will be like, wait, you're back in therapy? And I'm like, yeah, I felt like I needed it. So even the therapist, right? Even the therapist who, yes, I feel like I have insight and I have certain things, tools that I can use. Sometimes I just need to melt. And I need that space for me to melt and for me to just like this intergenerational, imagine, right? Like I just hearing a little bit of both of your stories, but imagine the caseload, like the histories that I hear. I have to tend to myself, and I have to honor that for myself, because I'm holding so much for so many people, and I don't need to carry it with me into my days all the time, but I do need to release it somewhere. So even therapists go through.
That's important. That's a part of self-care,
Yes.
right? Like, how can you
Yes.
hold on to so much if you're not taking care of yourself as well?
If I can't. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hey, this was an amazing topic. Thank you, ladies, for your time.
Yes. Thank you, Georgina. This was so beautiful.
Yay. You're an official Prima.
Okay, perfect.
Yay. Yes.
Just added 2 more to my big family.
Yes. Please add us. Well, thank you all so much for tuning in. Thank you for listening. Please leave us feedback on our Instagram at Primas Podcast. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'll be providing all of the resources that we talked about on our description box. We love you all, sending you all so much love and light. Thank you all so much. Bye.
Bye. Bye.